Rookie mini camp going on this weekend here in Charlotte for the Carolina Panthers, and y'all knew this one had to happen. As an Elon alum, when I saw that Davis Cheek, an Elon alum, and also a Butler High School alum, and from the Charlotte area, I had to have him on the show. And we're going to go ahead and do it today. Going to talk to Carolina Panthers quarterback and Elon alum Davis Cheek right now on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday through Friday, your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure to watch the show and subscribe to the show over on YouTube. You can also check out the show on all of the podcasting platforms out there, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Stitcher. You can rate, review, and subscribe to those places to listen to this show and all the shows across the Locked On Podcast Network. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, where every single Friday I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions. To participate, either at me at Julian Council, DM me at Julian Council, or leave a comment on today's show, or on Monday's show, or Tuesday's show, or on Thursday's show, and I'll answer your question on Friday. Just make sure to put in Friday mailbag and your name if you comment over on YouTube. Very excited, pumped about today's episode. The first Carolina Panther we're ever going to talk to on the show happens to be an undrafted free agent from Matthews, North Carolina, just south of Charlotte here in Charlotte, North Carolina, a Butler High alum, and an Elon Phoenix. Davis Cheek, the UDFA quarterback out of Elon, is a Carolina Panther. The hometown kid's going to join the show. I was fired up a couple weeks ago when I was up in Lake Lure and Asheville for a bachelor party, and I was pretty disconnected from the draft. And then I saw on Twitter that Davis Cheek had signed with the Panthers, and I tweeted out, "Let's bleep and go LFG," and connected with him through Twitter that time. And we have an interesting story. I had spoken to his class back at Elon. I don't know if he remembers that. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about his hopes and dreams and his goals. As we know, it's tough. As the Carolina Panthers have brought in Matt Corral, they have Sam Darnold, they have PJ Walker. It's tough to catch on in the NFL. Can he do that here? I'll talk about his hopes, his goals, his career back at Elon, battling through an ACL injury, and what it feels like to be a Carolina Panther quarterback, which is just so cool for a local kid to do that. We got so excited, the local people here, seeing Ike Ekwonu from NC State get that opportunity. We'll talk about the opportunity ahead for Davis Cheek here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags and in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy eating them. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to your average candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Built Bar is by far the tastiest and the healthiest choice. Go to Built.com right now and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers, and as promised, Carolina Panthers quarterback and Elon alum Davis Cheek joins the show. Davis, what's going on, man?
How's it going?
It's good, man. Has it set in yet? They hear that Carolina Panthers quarterback Davis Cheek.
I don't think so yet. I don't think it's real until everything starts to get rolling, which it's going to here really soon.
Yeah, with rookie minicamp coming up here this weekend in Charlotte, right there on Mint Street, you and the fellow rookie class will be out there in Carolina Panther colors for the first time, getting prepared for the offseason and the 2022 season ahead. For you, man, like we know how the draft process goes. We see guys get drafted. We see the phone calls. As someone who goes undrafted, what is that process like for you when trying to figure out where you're going to end up at?
It's a mad dash. It's a scramble. So pretty much all that stuff happens right after the draft concludes. And it's really just your agent is trying to field calls and stuff like that, and just figure out, at the end of the day, when you don't get drafted, you kind of have a choice usually, where you're going to go. So you're really just trying to figure out the best situations and all those different kinds of stuff. And that was the thing for me, is that Carolina was just, I felt really good about it. Obviously I grew up, Panthers fan, all that kind of stuff. So, I felt really good with the decision, and we hopped on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you went to Butler High School down in Matthews. Like, are you born and raised in the Charlotte area?
So I was born in Greenville, North Carolina. Both
Okay.
my parents were in college at the time, but I moved to Charlotte when I was 3 years old, and then lived all around Charlotte. Um, I went to a few different middle schools in Charlotte. I ended up going to Baltimore for about a year.
Yeah.
Went to Calvert Hall, and then came back to Butler. I had a buddy who went to Butler, and also it was just a very solid football school, and that was always my priority. So that's what kind of made me transfer in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were a Carolina Panthers fan, from as long as you can remember?
Yeah, I remember watching the Super Bowl with it was 03, and Tom Brady, Jake Delhomme, like
Yeah.
going back at it, and I hated Tom Brady for the longest time when I was a kid, and then I grew up to obviously appreciate his game, and being able to obviously sustain to this point is amazing. But yeah, so I always enjoyed watching the Panthers growing up.
Yes. How old were you back in 03 then?
Oh, I was 03. I was most likely 4. Yeah.
So you're 4 years old watching Super Bowl 38, and now you're playing in the same league as Tom Brady. Like,
Yeah. I think that's hats off to Tom Brady. And I mean, good Lord, the guy's still playing.
that's mind blowing. Honestly, I didn't even think about that. Because I actually was able to go to the game in Houston with my dad, and it's
Oh, wow.
still, and I was 12, maybe like 10 or 11 at the time. So it's
Mhm.
wild to even think like that's still, like, he's still playing in the NFL. But that's cool, man. Like, being a North Carolinian, glad to hear that. Happy to hear a Charlotte guy like you, Matthews. I guess we'll put respect on Matthews. It's a great area that it is.
Yeah.
I know Ike Ekwonu from NC State, who's now a Carolina Panther like you. He was talking about one of his favorite childhood memories is going to Matthews Alive, which I'm sure you hit up plenty of times as well.
Yeah, so I got into that stuff a little bit on the back end. I never visited, obviously, as a kid, because I didn't live in the Matthews area as a kid. But when I was in high school, me and some high school buddies would, it would come around, and it was always a fun time to go over and just check out the food trucks and everything like that. And from what I understand, it's actually grown a ton even since then. So everything, it's pretty cool to see how just Charlotte in general grow.
Yeah, that's dope, man. I mean, I grew up near the Siskiyou Y, so I also kind of grew up going there Labor Day weekend. So that was always a good time, man. So, being a Panthers fan growing up, some of your top memories that you have, favorite Panthers of all time.
Oh man, I'm a huge Luke Kuechly fan. Huge Luke Kuechly fan. I always liked Jake Delhomme. I never felt like I appreciated him enough, though. Obviously, as a kid, you don't know anything. But really, Cam Newton. I was a big Cam Newton fan. I always liked watching him play. Musa Muhammad. Always watching him. Julius Peppers as well. I was a huge Julius Peppers fan because I was a UNC fan when I was a kid.
Okay.
Really little. So a bunch of those guys, they were always just, it was just really awesome to see, guys from North Carolina. It was always, as a kid, you're like, holy crap, this is in my backyard. Like, this is the coolest thing in the world. So, yeah, I would say probably a lot of those guys. Luke Kuechly is probably one of my top guys.
Yeah, I was wondering, you wore 17 back at college at Elon. Was that any part of Jake Delhomme fandom? Why you chose that number?
No, actually, I've gotten a lot and throughout the draft process of, hey, you kind of remind me of Phillip Rivers and all that kind of stuff. But the reason I actually chose 17 was because the best quarterback in Elon history is Scott Riddle, and he wore number 16. Yeah. So I wanted to, one up him, and so I took 17.
I like that, man. I like that. So, I mean, let's go there. Let's talk Elon, man.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was telling people before, the first time I had ever spoken to you was a couple of years ago. One of my favorite classes at Elon was sports and media with Dr. Glenn Scott. And he asked me to Zoom into his class, and you happened to be in that class. I think he would ask me, like, hey, do you keep up with Elon Sports? It's like, a little bit. Like, I know about you, know about the football team. Finally, like, being respectable. Because when I was at Elon, I graduated in 15. They were the pits, man. They were garbage when I was at
What?
school. So I'm just like wondering for you, like you would have been in high school right around that time. Like, and you go to Butler. I went to Providence High. So Butler was always our conference rival. Football wise, they always got the best of us. And they had a state championship caliber program. Coming from that, what attracted you to want to go to Elon?
So it's funny. So I got recruited by Coach Skrosky when he was there, and he was the coach there for a couple years leading up to 16, going into 17 season. And then right before, in December, I get a call from the quarterback coach at the time, and he was like, "Look, Coach Skrosky just left. We don't know if we have jobs. We'll have to keep you updated." And at this point, I don't know if I have a scholarship. I don't know, what's going on. And then that's when, enter Coach Signetti, and Coach Signetti came in. He said he liked my film, and I was going to, obviously let me stay on and honor the scholarship and everything like that. And then they're also bringing another quarterback. But, that's what it was. It was competition. Never worried me at all. But, yeah, and it was really just, so I didn't know where I was going, but I didn't really have a ton of options coming out of high school. I started my junior season, had a respectable junior season, I'd say. I mean, nothing too earth-shattering, but my senior season, I started to really hit my stride, hit a groove, and really got some confidence under my belt. So I started to play some pretty good football my senior year, and obviously, we had a really good team my senior year as well. So. But by that time, it's just too late. Like all the bigger schools have their guys locked up, and they're looking on to the next class. So it was kind of crappy timing of hitting my stride. I was also, about 6'1", 170 pounds, soaking wet. I looked like a bigger version of the kid from Home Alone, and it was just hilarious, man. Like just the way that I looked, so gangly and everything. So I definitely had to grow into my body a little bit, but. It was just kind of the way it worked out. But I always enjoyed Elon. I committed to them after my junior season. So I was always a huge fan. And I mean, I wasn't necessarily scared of the challenge to go in there and try and turn a program around. That doesn't seem like that didn't seem like it was too tall of a task at the time.
Yeah, I mean, with Coach Pete Limbo back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, he had a good program. That was right. They weren't on the same level with App State per se, but they were challenging App State back in the Southern Conference, which you never got to play in. You played in the CAA. And for folks who don't know, when you look at FCS football, or what used to be known as 1AA, like that's basically the SEC of FCS football. You're going at it every week with some of the good schools in that conference and in that division. Just for you, you get there, and I can tell you got a lot of confidence. You got there, you knew it was competition. And what was kind of just your mindset when you stepped foot on campus, just knowing hey, I got to work on my body, but I know I can do this job?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing was when I first got on campus, I was like, I got to gain weight. I have to gain weight. I walked into the weight room at 173 pounds. By the end of the summer, I was 203 pounds. And so I was just eating everything in sight. It wasn't always good weight, and I had to learn how to put on good weight. But it was kind of the start to that journey. But either way, I got it done. And I ended up shredding a few more pounds and getting down to a more comfortable weight of 193 when I played my freshman year, which was at least enough to be able to take hits from grown men. I mean, you're going up against possibly 22, 23-year-olds when you're a freshman. And I was a little freshman. That's not like I'm up there throwing up bench press, 315 or anything. I mean, so that was the biggest thing for me. But then also I graduated early from high school to get in and learn the offense, to get in and just get some experience and just get time under my belt. Because I knew that was the one thing I lacked in high school, was just the experience. And I wanted to go to a place where I could play as early as possible. And that was just huge to me, because there's really no substitute for experience, and I'm so glad that I was able to get that at Elon.
Yeah, and you came in right away and started.
Yeah. It was me and Jay Green. We shared time for 2 games, and really it was about a game and a half or so, and then I ended up they stuck with me the rest of the time there.
Yeah, and I mean that season going back with 2017 would have been your freshman year, right?
Yep.
And you guys, I mean, you lose your first game to an FBS opponent. I think it was like a Toledo or something like that.
Yep.
And then you win 8 straight against the FCS opponent. So really, you're undefeated before you lost the final 2 games of the regular season, but then hosted a playoff game, which I never even fathomed as a possibility at Elon when I was there. Like that achievement to get there, to win the starting job, you split time early, but then take the reins and then to lead a program back to respectability for the first time in like 10 plus years. Like what did that mean to you?
I mean, I don't think I ever really grasped that, when you articulate it in those kind of ways, it's like, wow, like that's really great. And it's a great achievement. But to me, it was just more of like an everyday sort of process. It's, I feel like I've always known what it takes to win. And the thing is, it's not it's not the top of Mount Everest. It's the daily kind of climb that you make. So, I mean, I know that it's not if you want to get to playoffs, you want to win championships, you have to start preparing early on. And so I just took every single day as literally as possible. I guess I just took it as I just tried to put my head down and work every single day. That was the best way I can put it. And I know that's never really changed with me. That's always been something I felt like I've done pretty well. Is just pretty much take the situation for what it is, get relative with it, and then just, make the best out of it.
Yeah. I mean, you guys unfortunately lose in that first round at home. You come back to next year, you start the first 6 games, and then you suffer an ACL tear and you're on the shelf. And I know a lot of athletes, and plenty of your teammates there at Elon, plenty of your teammates now with the Panthers have all faced their own injury adversity, and that's a serious one right there with your knee, especially when you come in your freshman year, you're the conference player, rookie of the year, you got a ton of expectations coming off that season to hopefully get back to the playoffs, which you guys did that season. Just for you mentally and physically, what was that like having to go through a torn ACL after having such heights early on in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that you do is, I mean, it's really easy to fall into the trap if you know why me in that scenario, and that's kind of the mental side. Is you try to make meaning out of it, and the thing is, I basically ended up just taking it and getting to the point and perspective of, this thing this crappy thing happened. I can't control that it did, but let's figure out why maybe it happened, and let's put some ideas there, and then let's make sure that never happens again. And so what I kind of came to the realization of is that I wasn't strong enough. I think I wasn't strong and mobile enough in my legs and my hips, and I remember I was really tight going into that game, especially in my hips, and I don't know if somebody told me this just to, try to make me feel better or something, but I heard that basically like 80% of ACL tears come from tight hips, like just overly tight hips or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, like that to me makes complete sense, because I was rolling out to my left and I just flipped my hips, and that's when it happened. Kind of the turf monster got me. But I basically just used that as motivation. I was like, look, I got to get stronger. And I started getting a lot stronger, and my legs getting a lot more mobile. And luckily, Coach DeMarco, who's a strength coach at Elon, he's helped me out a ton along the way. And then even, into my lisfranc tear, which is just a freak thing, he's helped me a bunch just all the way through up until this process as well.
Yeah. I mean, so you have that, you bounce back, you guys come back, okay season 2019. Pandemic comes, and I'm just curious, as being someone who gets there and you have success, you have the injury, you guys have an okay season, and then the pandemic in the spring season. What was that experience like to be in school as an athlete, trying, especially when you're probably thinking yourself, like, all right, I'm going to be here for 4 years and then leave. And then all that happens. So you guys got the weird season. Like, what was all of that about?
I mean, just like I think most people's lives, it was just extremely uncertain. I mean, you don't know what's going on, and there's just a bunch of stuff happening just in the world. There's just a ton of stuff happening all over the place, and then on top of that, you got to fix your little community and try to make everything as good as possible in your little niche. But it was just a crazy time, man. I mean, you don't know whether or not you're playing, and then we don't know if we have practices, and then practices get cut. There's start, stop. And you never really know what's exactly going to happen. And then finally we get some light in the spring season, and obviously get injured again. But it was just a very up and down time, and it was just crazy from start to finish.
And then this past, or 2021, you have your final season this past fall, and you come back after that that spring season with 6 games. You guys are 1-5, and obviously not the level that you had been there under your head coach Kurt Signetti, then Tony Trissiani, whose assistant takes over. This past season, you guys kind of get back to a 6-5 record, missed out on the playoffs. But how important was it for you? I mean, because you probably could have had the decision to maybe leave and try and go see what your pro career was like. Why was it important for you to get one last season with your guys there at Elon?
Yeah, I mean, especially after I hurt my foot, there was I got a lot of questions of, do you just want to call it quits? Like, what's going through your head? Would you want to transfer? Like, this hasn't worked out the way maybe you thought. Whatever it is. The thing is, like, I don't think that to me would have been the easy route from my situation. I don't think my situation is the same as everybody else's. Other people have to do what's best for them. But for me, I felt like if I could put work into a community and a school that's put effort into me, that would mean a lot to me, and that would mean a lot to my teammates, and that's the right choice in this scenario. And the thing is, I never wanted to, shy away from a challenge. I've never been someone who wanted to do that. And this was just a time where I was like, hey, this is the decision that you need to make. So that was really like the biggest motivation. And I knew that we could be good. I know that we had a lot of potential. It's just a matter of, putting the building blocks together to making something great. And that was probably the hardest thing of this past season, was just that we were so close to being a really, really good team. And we just came up short in spurts, and we would put it together, and then we would start to fall apart a little bit, and we had to try and throw something together, and we ended up finishing well. But it was definitely one of those times where everyone learned a lot about themselves throughout that entire season, especially over the past couple of years, from just the COVID start-stop and then finally to the fall season.
Once the season ended, I mean, you graduate. How quick was just kind of your mindset flipping that switch, thinking, all right, now it's time to get prepared for the next level? Because I imagine you always dreamed of the opportunity to play in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing, and that's part of the kind of mental struggle you're going through that last fall, is that you're trying to be locked into what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you understand that this thing is looming over here, and it's a great thing, and it's a wonderful next step, but you need to finish the chapter that you started. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to make sure I gave absolutely everything I could to that school and that program for the last time I was there. And I mean, I did. And then what really helped me kind of get into the mode of, hey, I gotta flip the switch, is I had to get a surgery after the season to clean up more of the lisfranc injury that I had February of 2021. Mm-hmm. So I had another surgery in November, right after, pretty much a week after the season ended, to try and start my recovery process to get ready for this entire process. So that was like a kind of a wake up call. It's like, hey, this college is over. I didn't even get to move out of my dorm because I was laying in my room, a leg up, just trying to do that. My parents had to go do it for me, which was awesome that they were able to. But I just, didn't even get to move out, and just ended up going off the train pretty shortly after.
How long did it take for you to recover so you were 100% ready? Because I'm wondering, because with the lisfranc, here in Carolina, we dealt with it a couple of years ago with Cam Newton, as you well know, and the injury that he suffered, the same one that you did, and it kept him out of the rest of the 2019 season. Like, how long did it take you, especially the draft process, like, it's such a major concern to be able to show the scouts and these teams that, hey, I'm healthy, this is what I can do?
Yeah, that was huge for me as well, just going through multiple surgeries. But the lisfranc took, that happened February of 2021, leading up to my last season. So that took that entire time. I mean, I was pretty healthy going into the season, but I hadn't really run until that first game. And me and another buddy, actually, we were going through it together, and he was about a month behind me, so he was playing even a little bit more injured than I was. But throughout the season, you start to kind of get your footing, figure it out again, you start getting more healthy. But the thing for me was just that I had some residual effect. Like I had some bone spurs, and then the outside of my ankle was messed up. So I was just it was good to get that thing cleaned up completely, because I knew that was going to be a big question. And I was like, look, finally I'm able to say I'm good. So February 17th, I was fully cleared from the rostrum surgery that I got on the outside of my ankle and the cleanup of the rest of my foot. So that was amazing. And honestly, it was shortly after that time, it was the first time in about a year that I was able to walk around without pain in my foot, or just at least, a good amount of discomfort. And so that's one of the biggest things for just quality of life purposes. But the best thing was the fact that I was able to go out and, perform for my pro day and at Charlotte University, at UNCC. So that was a huge step for me, just in my confidence and just, getting back to, being the player that I know I am.
Yeah, you talk about, the mad dash it is after the draft is over and your agent kind of on the phones talking to teams. How many teams was he in contact with as you were trying to figure out where you're going to end up?
Yeah, it was a few of them. I'd prefer not to kind of say who they are.
Don't say who.
No, it was a few of them, and we wanted to go with what we thought was the best situation and the best opportunity, for me. And I mean, like I said, I'm stoked that it's Carolina.
Why was Carolina the best opportunity for you?
I think one of the biggest things is, they wanted me. They wanted me, and that was a huge deal. I mean, obviously, when you don't get drafted or anything like that, you don't know necessarily who does. And the thing is, Carolina did want me, and that's a big deal to me. And then on top of that is just, I feel good with depth chart, and me being possibly the fourth guy. Obviously, Matt Corral is coming in as well, and I mean, that's the guy that they drafted in the third round, and that's their guy. And the thing is, if I can figure out a way to just fit into whatever they need, what they need of me, whether that's a backup role, whether that's, hey, get ready because you could play a game in the fall, and that's what I'm going to do. I mean, I always try to prepare as like I'm going to be a starter, but obviously I understand the situation and that, I have to be able to be the best teammate I can and be whoever I need to be for that locker room. That's my biggest goal right now.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it too, like the realities of being an undrafted free agent, especially at the position that you play. Like only one guy can play, and it's supposed to be the best guy, but there's also, as you mentioned, and you're not necessarily saying, but there's the politics of the NFL. Like if a guy gets drafted third round and they think that that's their guy long term, that's the guy that they're going to want to try and see before they try and give a guy from Elon who they signed off the street, so to say, an opportunity. So you understand it. Like, what are your goals then? Because you look at, I look at it right now, Sam Darnold, as Matt Rule, your head coach, said, if you guys are going to play a game today, which obviously you don't, he would be the starter. I don't know where. I guess PJ's probably the second guy after being back the last 2 years, and then we'll see how Matt Corral as they develop him and where you guys fit in. It's like, what are your goals now from starting off this weekend with rookie mandatory or rookie mini camp to OTAs, mandatory mini camp, and then heading down to Spartanburg to Wofford College for training camp? Like, what are your personal goals as you try to find a footing in this league?
The best goal that I have right now is, I want to make active roster. That's what I want to be able to do. Obviously there's a lot of things that need to fall into place, a lot of steps that need to be taken for that to happen. But, I don't think it's necessarily out of the question, but that's my ultimate goal, is to make an active roster, because, that's, you're one step closer to being able to play. But really more than anything is I just want to be whatever the team needs me to be. Obviously, I'm excited to get in a meeting room with, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, and Matt Corral, because I'm excited just to get to know the guys. I'm excited just to be able to just, the quarterback room is something that's pretty special, and it's really awesome to me. Some of my best friends are my quarterbacks, or the quarterback room from college. I mean, I met some of the best people that I've ever known throughout college, and then even from last year in our quarterback room. So I'm just excited to kind of continue that and get into that quarterback room in Carolina and just enhance it in any way I possibly can.
Have you spoken to Sam or Matt or PJ at all?
No, I haven't spoken to any of them just yet. I'm probably gonna get pretty acquainted with a few of them here in just a couple of days. So I'm excited for it. I'm sure that they're also getting pulled in 1,000 different directions as well. So I can understand it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I bet you're about to be drinking out a fire hose here over the next couple of days once they get to
Yeah.
play a look and try to get you up to speed here in Carolina. But hey, man, as a one Elon alum and a Charlotte guy such as yourself, congratulations on this
Appreciate
opportunity.
you.
Like seriously, it's great to see our school get somebody at this level, and especially to be here in Carolina with the Panthers. So I'm excited for you, and I hope and wish you the best.
Thanks. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. We'll take a quick pause here on Locked On Panthers and close up the show. All right, I love that conversation. Enjoyed it. Honestly, his perspective is I was impressed. Like I knew what Davis did in his career at Elon. I knew about the ACL. Honestly, forgot the lisfranc. Like he's battled injuries in just his whole mindset about going through that and then coming back to school, working hard, just trying to be that servant. I heard a lot of servant leadership is what I've heard a lot about that. And just trying to come to Carolina, understanding just the economics of the NFL. Like I'm a UDFA. Like I got to come in, do whatever role the team wants me to do. And his goal is make an active roster. And that's the closest way to play. And we'll see what happens. I mean, Carolina, as we know here, Scott Fitter, the general manager's talked about, we need someone to stabilize his position. Sam Darnold has not done that. PJ Walker has not done that. We'll see if Matt Corral, the third round pick, can do that for the long term. I know that's a lot of y'all's hopes and my hopes as well. We'll see maybe if Davis Cheek can do that. Who knows? There's been great stories written here in this league. Look at Kurt Warner and where he ended up and where he came from. So it's possible, certainly for Davis Cheek, a guy who, had he stayed healthy there for the 4 or 5 years he was at Elon, maybe could have been someone who would have heard his name called in Vegas a couple weeks ago. But he's here at a place where they wanted him back home with an opportunity to potentially be that fourth guy here. And not a bad spot to start off for a guy who played at Butler High and then played at FCS Elon, battled injury, and now is back home with an opportunity to play in a National Football League. That's going to wrap it up here for this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, make sure to watch the show and subscribe to the show on YouTube. And be sure to check us out also on every single one of the podcasting platforms you use to listen to all your favorite podcasts that are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network and all out there in the podcast universe, including this one. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and Stitcher. So make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show on any of those platforms. And also follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, where every single Friday I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions. To participate, either at me at Julian Council, DM me at Julian Council, or leave a comment on today's show or from any of the shows Monday through Thursday of this week, and I'll answer your questions on Friday. In the meantime, take care, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Thursday. By the way, almost forgot, the schedule comes out. So I will be going live after the schedule, which I think will be your Thursday episode. I'll let you know. That might be your Friday episode. Might turn around and do the mailbag. I'm now trying to figure out the programming in my head. But either way, that's why you need to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. But in the meantime, take care, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all live on Thursday evening on the Locked On Panthers YouTube channel.